Mr. Shauna Spencer, and I am the founder of Kwelitv, a streaming network that is dedicated to the stories, the culture of the African diaspora. I'm really excited for our next Meet the Filmmaker series to have Nosa here, who I want to thank him so much. It is 3 a.m. in London, so I really appreciate you taking time out to be here and talk about your film, talk about your short. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody who's watching. And yes, it's a pleasure to talk with you. And you know, to have met with Kwelitv, and you know, I love what you guys are doing. So yeah,
and we love what you're doing. Yeah. So I really want to get started for people who may not have seen the film. Talk about what Orisa is. Talk about what the film is.
Okay, well, Orisa the Orisa is basically a taster, which is a short film which is based upon these ancient deities known as Orisa. The Orisa are deities who were followed across the African diaspora, from Brazil to Nigeria to parts of America and the Caribbean as well. So it's a global belief system, and what the concept of the film is taking these ancient deities and representing them in the 21st century almost as superheroes in an action, thrilling type of film.
Right.
So yeah, that's the long and the short of it. It's based on a particular Orisa named Oya, who is the Orisa of wind, lightning, and change. She's a warrior goddess, and we try to, and I hope that my film does as much justice as this amazing pantheon deserves.
And you talk about these ancient deities. Of course, you know, being an American, you know, we're sort of spoon-fed Greek mythology, and not really anyone of African descent. So for a lot of the subscribers for Kwelitv, I mean, they were really excited to see a superhero or see even a deity who looks like them.
No, I totally agree with you. You know, like it was sort of like my thought process a few years back when, you know, I love, for instance, Clash of the Titans, 300, those type of movies. And in my mind, I said, why can't there be one based upon African deities? Because we have them, you know, they're there. But it's like no one's making the movies about them. So for me, it's like there's over 400 of these Orisa, and you know, if you take the stories of Anansi and all the other sort of African mythologies, there's like thousands of stories to tell. So rather than retreading old paths, I wanted to try and forge a new path and create something different and original.
Right, and one of the cool things about her, I mean, she has her locks, and I mean, very Afrocentric. Was that done on purpose, or I mean, did you do? I'm sure you did a lot of research on this deity to try to keep it in keeping with the actual character. I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did. At first, when I decided, you know, what type of pantheon I wanted to work with, I initially saw a picture of a woman with like a mask on, and there was a hurricane in the background, and she had like a whip, and I was like, I need to use this, you know, this character, because I didn't even know much about it, but then it spoke to me. So I decided I'm going to make a film based upon this deity. And in regards to like her looks and how she appears, like first and foremost, the actress played her came in and was just amazing. And I just, you know, regardless of, you know, how she looked, like I said, she's just fantastic anyway. But then at the same time, just considering, you know, the imagery of these deities, images of these deities were, you know, our locks, you know, the hairstyles that we used to have back in Nigeria, which, you know, sort of like had the hairs that could made to be plaits that could be made to look like crowns, if you know what I mean. So it's really sort of like regal stuff, and I just wanted to stay as true as possible to, you know, the actual representation of these deities, you know, because I'm dealing with someone's religion, someone's belief system. So had to be authentic. That was, something that I couldn't get away with.
And what has been some of some of the feedback you've gotten from from this short?
Yeah, the short has been really fantastic. What I've realized is that initially, a little bit of history about myself. I've been working in film for quite a few years. My first few films won quite a few awards and got me the opportunity to sort of like sit in and work in the British industry. And as I sort of started to continue to make films, I realized that I was making films that I felt other people would accept rather than films I wanted to make. So personally, though I've had films that have done quite a lot of different things, this is my most successful project because firstly, on a personal level, it's something which I said I want to do, regardless of what anybody else thinks. This is what I want to do. Initially, I remember I was in a film festival. I had another film showing in this festival. And I stood up to everybody and I said, for my next project, what I want to do is I want to make a Nigerian superhero movie. And if I tell you, the whole audience started to burst into laughter.
Really?
And I was like, yeah, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, this is going to be dope and, you're going to see. So I went to go and make it and, I made it. And since it's been out, it's been really successful. It's pushed me and pushed my profile a lot further. And people have really engaged with it. It's the trailer itself has had over 250,000 views online. The film has traveled to various festivals. It's been in festivals in the US and Brazil, in Nigeria, across the world, basically. And it's also sort of it's been featured in many publications. It's been featured in the BBC in the UK. It's also been featured on Brazil's national publication, O Globo.
Awesome.
So it's really been very successful, and I think I created it to show that there was an audience for this, and I think it is showing that there's definitely an audience for this type of content.
I think it's crazy that people, first of all, laughed when you talked about your ideal. We've got a lot, as you mentioned, it's very popular. When we posted it on Kwelitv's platform and on social media, we got a huge reaction, great reaction from people. So I want to talk about that a little bit later, but I really want to get your sense of, what made you decide? Because a lot of people, go into filmmaking because they want to create something that's important to them, but then they realize that the money may not necessarily be there to create what they really want to create. So they create things that feel like, okay, I'll make money off of this versus creating something that's my true passion. What's the process like for you to say, I'm going to do this no matter what, no matter if it's successful or not? This is something I believe will be successful if I put it out there. I mean, being true to yourself. I mean, was it a process for you? Did you have doubts, middle of the way in?
Yeah. I mean, you always have like doubts, and I remember there's been times in the project where I thought to myself, are the Orisa themselves like trying to test me, like, trust me, there's some stories, but I don't even want to get into too much of that at the moment. But yeah, like, to be honest, in terms of like, I think I've always been kind of like an idealist, and I've always looked at the world and said, I want to do something which hasn't been done, or I want to get into something and try and change what I see out there. So after a while of, sort of making movies, I looked at the general overview of the landscape of filmmaking. And with the improvement in technology, with technology democratizing everything and allowing people to get into filmmaking and into distribution,
right.
It kind of like made me look at it and say, I mean, it's stupid if I don't go and make what there's no time in the world that's like this. Even me having this conversation with you right now, that couldn't have happened 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
So for me to sort of try and base films or base what I make on the past, what the past said works, would be stupid. What I think needs to happen is people need to make stuff for the current economic climate, for the current technological climate. And That's what I'm trying to do. And again, like for instance, I always sit down and I look at things and I say, for instance, what if the greatest artists in the past lived today? Like, what if Leonardo da Vinci lived today? In his time, they thought he was a lunatic.
Right.
If he was living today, if he was living today and he was using the internet, like, what would he do? So, like, for me, it's like we have so much potential, but if we base it upon what other people think and what they say, then there's only so far that we can go.
Right, you really bring up a good point. Number one, the fact that we're having this conversation. I mean, Kwelitv is a beta, and Blab is a beta, and I think this was launched a couple of months ago, just like Kwelitv. But you're right, filmmaking has changed so much. I mean, the entry is still difficult to get on a big screen, but to actually create a film is so much easier. I mean, I did a documentary on a DSLR camera. I want to hear kind of what you did, because your film was made very well. I mean, it's a sci-fi, so it's not like, it's standing there. You actually have to have components within the film to make it look like she has superpowers. So how were you able to do that on your budget? If you don't mind talking what your budget was, and being able to do so much with a very small budget.
Cool. Well, we crowdfunded initially. And this is me just floating the idea out there, and we crowdfunded and we put together a bit of our own funds to make it. And I think in total we spent about £6,000 on the film as a whole. So I don't know how much that translates into dollars. It's about probably $10,000.
That sounds
good. Which to make a sci-fi film, and with the costumes and all the other stuff, and the locations doesn't go too far. So, but what I had done is I always I'm very much into technology, and my entry into filmmaking was through editing. So I started on the technological side. So I always was aware that with enough kind of ingenuity and enough passion, you could really make some really incredible stuff, because the tools are there. So I just really researched a lot. I had a group of people who were really dedicated, who thought the idea was amazing. And I used to mention After Effects is great. After Effects is great. Like, it helped me a lot. But there's a bunch of projects, and there's a bunch of different types of things which you can use, which as long as you sort of want to go out there and learn and do the tutorials, there's so much information out there. You just have to say, I want this, and you'll get it.
But like you're saying, because of technology, you were able to do more than maybe someone would have been able to do 10, 15 years ago, especially in sci-fi, because sci-fi, there's more work involved instead of just having a camera. I mean, you have to have things to show, because in America, like, there's a sci-fi channel, and some of the films, obviously, they didn't have the budget. That's my husband seemed to like too. Like, even I can tell that's fake, right? Come on. But it was very well received. And it was 12 minutes long too. I mean, were you initially looking to do a short, and are you looking for it to eventually be like a full-length feature, or extending it? Because one of the things I've been seeing from our subscribers, they're like, okay, this was great. I want more of this story.
Well, what we are doing initially, this, as you mentioned, it was sort of like something we put out there to say, okay, I want to show that this has a market and this has an audience to potential investors for a full-length movie. And now I'm currently working on a script for a full-length movie. So it focuses around Oya, and there's a few other deities who are also included in the mix as well. Before that, we are planning to bring out 2 seasons of a web series. So the feature, as I said, the script is in development, and I'm looking to hopefully have everything wrapped up and ready to shoot by the beginning of next year. So we're aiming to shoot in Rio and parts of Nigeria.
Oh, nice. Rio. Nice.
Yeah. I just actually came back from Rio, and I saw like just it's amazing. The landscape is just
I'm
fantastic, and I
sure.
was like, this has to be on film. But I also have two web series which I'm coming up with at the moment. The first web series is based upon Yemoja, which is another deity, the deity of the ocean. So it's called Yemoja, Rise of the Orisa. And that's basically that will be done by the end of this year. It's a different sort of like it's a different, yeah, definitely. It's like have IC. But no, it's a different. Yemoja Rise of the Orisha is a different sort of story, though it, you know, it also has a deity who is super powered. The sort of elements that we're working with are slightly different because her energy is different. So for each of the web series, we're going to have one called the Yemoja Rise of the Orisha. We're going to have various web series based upon different Orisha. And each web series is going to sort of, the tone of the web series or the season of the web series will be different based upon the energy of the Orisha. So something like Yemoja it's almost like a supernatural drama, whereas something like Shango Rise of the Orisha will be more of an action-packed drama. So I'm really excited about bringing these things out, and my sort of like whole long-term goal is to sort of build this as a cinematic universe. So you can come in, you can watch a web series, you can read a comic, which we're actually developing as well. You can watch the film, and they all sort of feed into the universe, also their own standalone stories as well.
Right, almost like a DC Comics or you know, type of deal where they have the comic books and they have the movies, they have, you know, the TV shows. Of course, yours would be a web show, which I think nowadays web shows are so significant. People aren't watching television as much. They're streaming content. So again, you were mentioning distribution and how things are different than what they were 10 years ago. Having a web series could be on Kwelitv, or it could you can have it on YouTube. I mean, there are so many different options now for filmmakers. I mean, it's exciting, but do you feel like, I mean, what do you think about this time as a filmmaker, being a filmmaker in this time right now?
I think there's no better time than now as a filmmaker. You know, like there's certain people who, you know, are a bit worried about lack of investment in the independent sector, et cetera, et cetera. But to be honest, I feel that, you know, there's so much opportunity for us as creators to go out there and find an audience and speak to an audience, and for the audience to connect with us, that, you know, like you can't waste it, you know. Never before would I be able to sort of like put a film out there and have a person in Jamaica, have a person in Portugal, have a person in India, all watch the film at the same time. So for me, it's like this is an opportunity, and I don't know how long it's going to be as open as it is right now. Yeah. But while it is, I think people need to take advantage of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is open. I think that's a good thing. You know, that it's open. Hopefully it stays open. I know, at least in the U.S., the goal has been, like with the FCC, to make sure that the internet is open and people, you know, can keep access. Because I think in the future, as we know, especially with both of us, your stories are focusing on the African diaspora, people of African descent. And we know that the internet has really changed, and our communities have really been very positive for people who may not have a laptop at home. They have their mobile devices and they can watch your content, you know, like on their phones. I mean, things have changed so much. I want to talk a little bit more about, you were mentioning earlier about how you're going to kind of draw it all together, like with the web series and then with the comic book. So are you writing the content as well? Are you also the writer in addition to the director of your content? Or are you working with other writers for this particular project?
Well, for the first, for Oya, I wrote and directed it. For content which I'm coming up with, I'm collaborating with writers, and, you know, I'm also sort of open to, you know, collaborating with people who sort of write and have like a voice which would match the type of series that I'm doing. So for instance, with Yemoja, I am collaborating with a writer named Mary Ononokono, and she is a novelist who has done some pretty cool work. Really, one of the best writers I've actually seen, and but a lot of her work sort of it lives in a similar world to what I'm trying to do with Yemoja, in terms of, you know, it is based upon it is, I guess, African supernatural historical fiction that she writes, and it really marries with what I'm trying to do in this series. So yeah, I think again in this new age, you know, if people have talent, then, you know, we can work together across the pond, across the borders, and, you know, we can all make something special, you know.
Right.
Because I mean, I had a friend the other day, and again, this is one of the things which I think is great about Kwelitv. I had a friend who I was speaking to. She recently just came down from South Africa, but she's actually Indian, South African. But it's funny because talking to her, she was like, you know, for like, you know, she was like, I'm saying I'm Indian, but I was like, she's like, I haven't really lived in India before, but my forefathers came to South Africa 400 years ago. And she was like, but they've been there, but she's still sort of like, her main aim is to get into the Bollywood industry. She's a model. So she was really sort of like still kind of like the conversation between this Indians and South African and in India itself was very strong. And that's why I think, you know, needs to happen across the African diaspora, in terms of, you know, like we have so much stuff going on and have so much similarities, and, you know, bringing it together, you have billion strong people. And it's power.
It is power, like around the world. And it's interesting you say that, because when I was, you know, when I was launching Kwelitv, and people were thinking that, okay, Africa, African American, like, no, we're beyond that. We're in Rio. Are you going to be in Rio? A good chunk of us are in Rio. There's a web series on that platform. A guy in Germany. He's a brother in Germany, and he has a web series about Black people in Germany, because he said growing up there wasn't anyone he could relate to. We're everywhere, you know, and I think it is so important for us to share our stories, because for him, he said he couldn't find anyone that he could relate to as a Black man in Germany. There are Black people in America who feel the same way. I'm sure there are Black people in London who feel the same way where you are. And we share the same stories. We share the same struggles. And I think it's so important for us to share through Kwelitv. So I really appreciate you being on the platform. And like I said, your film has gotten a lot of accolades from our viewers. And one of the things about the film, it was about an abduction. Of course, it was more than just a girl being kidnapped, but to me, it was actually very personal, because I'm not sure how it is in London, but in America, Black girls who are more likely to be abducted, but are less likely to get the same type of play on media. Like in the media, you know, they don't get the same attraction as maybe a blonde white girl. Is that the reason why you particularly chose that storyline, knowing that that's an issue, or was it just a coincidence? Because that was the first thing that I thought of. At least here in America, that's a real big problem. Black women, it's not as important, unfortunately, when we get abducted or when we become missing.
I would say that I actually it didn't consciously come in my head to, you know, the political ramifications of that part of the storyline. Although, to be honest, like a lot of the stories that I kind of create, I'm currently sort of creating them without like a filter in terms of like how other people will perceive them. I'm just creating them from, you know, what I see in my world, you know. But obviously the world I live in is colored by political reality. Henceforth, the story is based upon, you know, a young Black girl being rescued, because, you know, I have a daughter, and, you know, at the end of the film, you know, you have like a dedication to 3 women who were really important in my life: my mom, my daughter, and my niece. And for me, you know, to have the representation of these women on screen was something really essential, was something I felt that needed to be put out there. And again, it wasn't so political, but it was just like, I haven't seen this before. You know, like for instance, I had a friend who sat down and she was watching the two women who actually fight.
Right. Yeah, I was going to talk about that too next. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was, you know, yeah, I've had a couple people actually, but she was like, you know, like just the actual fact that you have like these two, you know, women, black women fighting, and you know they're skilled and they're martial artists, and you know, like you don't usually see that. And I was like, and she made it sort of like political, but I was just in my mind, it was just like that would just be really cool because I haven't seen it before. Right. And I'm like, I'm trying to do it.
Right,
you know?
But it was really cool. I mean, and it was done well too. Did you work with someone to help with the fight scene? Because okay, because it was done really well.
Yeah, no. Thanks for that. I worked with a guy called a choreographer and also a Muay Thai teacher in London called Nuwakai. And we, like, I had sort of like the idea of how I wanted the beats of the fight to go in terms of how it was like as a story, because I feel that the fight should be a story in itself. And then he sort of came in and, you know, trained both of the girls. The girl playing Oya or Adesua was already a capoeirist, but the other girl wasn't trained. So he came in and sort of did some training with them and choreographed the fight scene. And you know, it was great. You know, I think it was essential for me to have him there because A, you know, he's already got a massive amount of skill, and B, you always need someone there who's going to be taking care of safety, because, you know, it was hard on both of the young ladies. One of them had a real bad back injury afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She's okay now, but she fell on the floor a lot. So, and even the big guy who played Mott, who ran out Oya at the beginning, he was amazing. Like, he literally was thrown into a brick wall about 6 or 7 times, and he just, you know, was like, I'm not gonna fake it. I'm just gonna run into the wall, and you know, I'm gonna
wow. And so you had some really great actors. How are you able to find them? I mean, for a lot of times, for a lot of filmmakers, especially, you think, you know, for U.S. terms, $10,000, finding actors, finding choreographers, basically it's 12 minutes, but still really well done. How are we able to put that together? I think for all the filmmakers, they may be wondering, or potential filmmakers may be wondering, how is able to pull all of that together with very little resources?
Well, I mean, I just feel that the concept in itself kind of sells itself, and you know, like a lot of the time, I felt, you know, walking up to somebody and saying, "Hey, you know, regardless of where they're from, or regardless of their race, but you know, we're gonna have like a superhero movie. You're gonna fight some people, and it's gonna be really cool. Do you want to do it?" And people generally were very interested in getting involved in this type of project. So I think a lot of it was based upon that enthusiasm, and then, like, as a director or just as a person, I'm very sort of like intense. Like, you know, I'm always kind of really on it. So I feel that gave everybody a lot of encouragement, because if you see that, you know, the director or the producer is seriously into it, then, you know, that means that you have to bring it every time that you're coming, you know, on set. You know, and I think it was just, you know, a combination of that energy and that team that sort of, you know, gave us something really special. Right.
So we're just about out of time, but I want to ask you one more question. And it's more about, where do you see yourself? I know you mentioned all the projects you're working on, but do you see yourself as a sci-fi director? Or, because I will say a lot of the people, at least for Kwelitv subscribers, are like, we need more sci-fi of people who look like us. And so I was like, So when I found about your project, I was like, this is perfect. Do you see yourself as being a sci-fi filmmaker, or do you see the importance of having the work, how important your work is? I'm sure you do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess I just kind of, you know, what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to do stuff that I like and stuff that I think is cool. And, you know, I'm a massive sci-fi geek. a massive comic book geek. So, you know, I like making that type of stuff. You know, I might do, like I've got, for instance, I've got a Nigerian time travel film, which is coming out soon, which I'm working on. So like it's that kind of stuff, because being a Nigerian myself, like I've seen so many stories and I was told so many stories as a young person, which I thought would be amazing on screen. But then taking a particular sort of viewpoint that we have as Nigerians or as Africans or as people in African diaspora of like magic and how it relates to us, a lot of that stuff hasn't been told on screen. So there's just so much that I don't know if I'll get over it in like 20 years or if I'll keep going. So,
no, I think it's awesome. Yeah. You know, follow your heart. I think that's the most important lesson that I'm definitely taking away from your story. You follow your heart and it's working out. And I think a lot of times people follow the money versus following their heart, and it may not necessarily work out for them, or they may get money, success, but they won't be fulfilled inside. So it's 3:30 a.m. your time. We're going to cut off exactly at 10:30 Eastern time, as we said we would. But Nosa, thank you so much for this really great conversation. Thank you so much for, you know, taking time out in the middle of the night in London to this conversation and doing the great work that you're doing. For our people who are watching, his film is currently streaming on Kwelitv, Kweli.tv, Kweli.tv, and it is called Oya Rise of the Orisa. It is a 12-minute short. It is awesome. It's definitely worth your time. And that is a wrap for us for tonight. And see us in 2 weeks as we do another Meet the Filmmaker series. Have a great night, everyone. Bye. Take care. Bye. Thank you. And thank you for joining us, everyone.